Hey everybody, welcome to Our Culture Gaming. I'm Scott. Let's talk a little bit about GTA 6. Now, the state of GTA 5 continues to be kind of insane. It makes something like $5 or $6 million a day, and the success of it kind of forced Rockstar to rethink what GTA even is. Even the cultural positioning of GTA as gaming's bad boy has dissipated, with 5's torture scene receiving nowhere near the same coverage as something like San Andreas' hot coffee scandal. Because right now, GTA 5 is still in the charts. We're 5 years later, and it's still selling enough to be one of the best-selling games of all time and of every week. It's kind of ridiculous. It's kind of its own phenomenon, and I don't really know who the hell hasn't played GTA 5 at this point. But with all that in mind, where does GTA 6 even go from here? I'm Scott from OurCulture.com, and this is GTA 6, 10 things it must do better than 5. But before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to stay notified. Ding, ding, done. Number 10, strike a balance between single and multiplayer content post-launch. Now, a few people might remember that way back when GTA 5 first launched, Rockstar actually talked about doing a whole bunch of single-player DLC. It was planned, it's been talked about by the developers, and it was gonna come out. Yet over time, as the online component gathered a ridiculous amount of steam, we saw members of their own design team discussing how development had shifted towards multiplayer, rather than anything more narrative-focused. To be honest, GTA has nearly always had a bit of a problem with its story content, one that we don't tend to talk about that much, but I guarantee that the vast majority of us that have played them have only played through each one of them once, simply because the average GTA campaign comprises hours upon hours of cutscenes, missions, and side missions. Once it's in the bag, that's you done forever. Now, Kotaku actually published a report years back on how only like 10% of all players actually finish their games, and I would hazard to guess that Rockstar are more than aware of that. A huge amount of their budget must be dedicated to making single-player stories, and the vast majority of us either only see them once or never even finish them at all. Combating this would be something like bite-sized story packs, picking up on where characters like Michael, Trevor, Franklin, etc. are post-credits, if they're still alive. But it stands to reason that in focusing so much on GTA Online, the story/character side of things has all but been forgotten about. Just have a think for a second. When you think of GTA now, do you think of the story, the world building, the tone, or do you think of GTA Online and the anarchy and the online dynamic multiplayer sessions and all that kind of thing? They can keep going forward with something like GTA Online, but give those of us who want stories and characters and narratives and all that kind of thing bite-sized little chunks, maybe 5 to 6 hours of a worthwhile progression to go through that just ticks the box of something more immersive and memorable than just another multiplayer match. Number 9, make property and playing the stock market matter. Walter White once claimed he was in the empire business after expanding his meth racket in Breaking Bad, and it's a sentiment carried into GTA 5, yet only a sentiment. Though you can purchase all sorts of property from around Los Santos, there's not really any point other than like 100% completion or just for the sake of it. The same goes for the stock market. After it gets introduced in one of the story missions, you can go into it and start balancing figures and get different payouts, but nothing in regards to the way that the world interacts with you is actually dependent on that. You're not meeting up with characters who look at your stock price and offer you specific weapons or specific items based on how you're performing. It's kind of just a thing that you can go and do if you want to, and for me, that meant that I just didn't. All round, both of these systems resulted in more money to invest in random property or stocks that do nothing. It's like two parts of an equation without the result. To remedy this, why not gate certain cars, weapons, or items behind particular high-end moguls that won't even entertain your presence if you're not balancing the books? At least this has a gameplay benefit rather than just something relating to arbitrary completion. Number 8, give us more innovative ways to interact with the environment. Considering how much money has been put into making GTA 5's world one of the most intricate and overblown, dripping in wealth video game worlds ever, the actual way that we interact with it is very basic. Climbing, jumping, mantling, etc. are all in there, but there's almost a bottleneck of conflicting animations if you ever try to climb a ladder after sprinting head-on. We saw in 2005's The Warriors how Rockstar nigh on perfected locomotion and traversal, but it didn't carry into GTA 4 and 5. I mean, look, GTA doesn't need to become like Assassin's Creed and have some sort of in-depth parkour-style system, but if you really think about it, how much is our movement actually advanced going from GTA 3 all the way through to 5? A bit more time put into fluidity and how animations overlap, and getting rid of things that glitch out and result in ragdoll left, right, and center might just improve gameplay overall. Number 7, not one gimmick mission. Now, I'm going to refer to these things as gimmick missions. We've all got our names for them, from what the flying f is that to really we're doing this. But I mean, things like the dockyard level that we had, scouting the port. Why? Why put that much money on it and time into making a level that's literally just the player moving shipping containers around? GTA has always had this kind of weird off-kilter sense of humor, but this was one of the first times where we just kind of didn't have fun with it. It seems that with the rise of GTA as a cultural touchstone, we've seen Rockstar embrace its memeability, the decision to create entire missions that are more like interactive comedy sketches. Michael's Life Invader Infiltration, where you spend a good 20 minutes just wandering through offices, seeing Rockstar poke fun at the Apple-worshipping tech nerd elite. It was fine, but it could have been done with more gameplay-intensive stuff in the background. You need only look to Watch Dogs 2's Limp Noodle mission, which was basically their way of skewering Google, but they maintained a healthy amount of gameplay alongside the narrative. That's how this stuff should be done, even though none of us are ever going to admit that GTA should learn from Watch Dogs. Basically, no one is playing GTA for the comedy. It's a side effect, and a brilliant one. But this balance needs to be addressed going forward, as GTA 5 occasionally had the scales tipped way too far in the wrong direction. Number 6, mission design needs to play to the game engine's strengths. Now, it's another point about missions, but how many of the story missions did you actually enjoy playing? Like, a lot of them were set up to be set pieces that we would enjoy playing, like stunting Trevor's bike onto the top of a train, but the reality of that is that the physics don't necessarily land very well, and 9 times out of 10 we're about to line up a jump, not really knowing confidently if we're going to land, and as much as you can argue that that's part of the in-the-moment intensity, the reality is that you bounce off some cliff or part of the environment, or just don't land properly, and it's back to doing it again. GTA's set pieces have nearly always felt very awkward, and it's something that they need to address going forward if they're going to put so much focus on them. For example, look to the Humane Lab stealth infiltration. It felt like Rockstar were playing to the game engine's strengths, those being gunplay and a methodical pace to the level itself. Headshots felt satisfying, and the cover system worked in tandem with some ace corridor sections, all wrapped in the guise of slinking around undetected. Contrast this to the Mad Dogs Rhymes mission from San Andreas, which was also a mansion stealthy infiltration type thing, and you can see just how far Rockstar have come. The problem is that they need to keep going. Number 5, unlock the full map piece by piece. This is mostly down to how the open world genre has evolved over time, mainly just seeing a whole bunch of developers go, here's everything, go spend 500 hours finding every last question mark or collectible or whatever. It's just, it's all there. Just get lost in it. It's profitable. It works. But if you go back to the likes of GTA 3, we unlock the map piece by piece. Now, I kind of think that this is a more beneficial way to enforce gameplay in regards to the open world itself. It means that you have to study the island that you're on. It means that you learn all sorts of intricate secret paths and ways that the roads line up or ways that you can get away from the police. It kind of just means that you're prepared for the next island when you get there, the next stage of gameplay. Rockstar kind of need to start treating these like levels again. GTA 5 almost got this across when you first flip over to Trevor up in Sandy Shores / Blaine County, as your surroundings looked completely different. But then you're back to the city again, and the overwhelming nature of just trying to memorize anything and everything is, well, overwhelming. I would wager that the vast majority of players could actually draw a pretty accurate map of GTA 3, Vice City, or San Andreas from memory, and it's because we spent so much time in their individual portions, gradually connecting them all together. It's just a better way to roll out an open world rather than here's just the whole thing. You knew the secret routes, the stunt jumps, the parts of the world geometry that you could just fling yourself off to cover distance in quicker time. When it came time for a change, you were ready, but it was never a knock on the environment itself. All of this goes away when we're asked to take in a ludicrous amount of space at once, and actually going back to the island by island design would benefit gameplay tenfold. Number 4, make clothing and gangs / factions matter again. San Andreas was the only game that got this right. If you look to wearing clothes and what it means and factional disputes and all that kind of thing, San Andreas meant that if you were wearing appropriate clothing, certain gangs would leave you alone, whereas others would actually come and back you up in firefights. GTA 5's approach to this was to kind of make clothing not matter at all. You could change what you're wearing, but the second you switch to a character and switch back, they'll be wearing something else. It's supposed to get across that, hey, these characters do live in this world and, they're going to change their clothes. But what's even the point in dressing someone up and trying to live a certain role-playing life if you're going to wipe it out again? If you fold in the aforementioned idea of certain high-end dealers of weapons or items, etc., only being accessible depending on how you're dressed or if you're in favor with certain gangs, again, it relays something back to base gameplay. This is how GTA 6 could make clothing matter again and ostensibly give us a progression to unlocking better clothing or better styles or just different ways to dress. The only downside back in 2003 was that Rockstar forced us to take back and defend different territories every few hours. So remedy that with a mechanic that ensures they stay yours for longer, and the overall idea is already much more appreciative. Number 3, return of the mute protagonist. There's a case to be made that the only way GTA can truly work is if you have a main character that's completely devoid of personality. It needs to be someone that we can project all our most ridiculous, anarchic, wanton destructive tendencies onto, and that kind of gets negated if we're supposed to be playing a person or a character or a specific role. Case in point was GTA 4. The more nuanced and rounded off that Nico was, discussing how he didn't want to lead a life of crime, contrasted entirely with every action he then took. The same goes for John Marston in Red Dead, as he would acknowledge the stupidity of what he was being asked to do, only to do it anyway. GTA 5's answer was to make Trevor a complete psychopath from moment one, but even he didn't work because that approach is entirely one-dimensional, and no one wants to control an actual piece of shit. That's how you get games like 2015's Hatred. Overall, we need a character like Claude, someone that's just literally a walking blank canvas, and it lets us go into all sorts of scenarios, whether they be destructive or mission completion or whatever, without worrying about would this character actually do this, or even having to bring that into the conversation at all. GTA is wish fulfillment, it's escapism, nihilism, and the exploration of just how twisted our own minds can be. It can't be any of those things if the guiding hand is anything other than our own. Number 2, use celebrity cameos / voices to make memorable side characters. For GTA 3, we had Joe Pantoliano, Michael Madsen, Frank Vincent, Michael Rappaport. Vice City and San Andreas gave us Ray Liotta, Gary Busey, Shawn Ryder, and Axl Rose. The list went on and on. GTA 4, though, it was a complete slate wipe, as Rockstar noted that people were hearing the celebrity rather than the character, which is somewhat fair. By GTA 5, though, we've got no notable celebrity voices whatsoever, and I think that is a really poignant negative. Part of the fun and overall bluster of that original 3D trilogy came from this fun mentality of seeing a ton of known names all pile in to embody a range of personalities. This made for a great mix of great missions, radio banter, and tone that overall allowed Rockstar to poke fun at the very society it was trying to bounce off to make GTA what it is. Simply including a whole host of recognizable voices and actors would make GTA feel old school, nostalgic, memorable, and lovable all over again. And number 1, establish an identity for the future. So the biggest issue that I found with GTA 5 was how it kind of walked back the maturation period, or whatever you want to call it, that GTA 4 started bringing to the table. Minus Brucey in 2008's release, we had far less over-the-top characters, a way more nuanced story about immigration and the failure of the American dream. Sure, you can argue that the tone was a little bit too serious in comparison to the aliens and jetpacks of San Andreas, but next to GTA 3, it looked to establish Rockstar as more of a Naughty Dog than what Volition would then do with Saints Row. Because of the way that GTA 4 went down, it made Rockstar try to make a game that appeased to those sort of rowdy fans or the people that didn't really like the direction that GTA 4 was going. That is completely fine, and there's probably a way to do both, but I think that the way that GTA 5 came together kind of betrays the identity that Rockstar wanted it to have for the foreseeable future. GTA Online is by very definition a sandbox. The single player a mix of SNL skits, terribly framed comments on subjects like torture, and characters you couldn't even enjoy as anti-heroes. It showed that the once punk rock garage band feel Rockstar used to exude had become mass market and targeted. GTA 5 is almost Sex Pistols Johnny Rotten doing butter adverts. Above all, GTA 6 needs to re-establish the franchise as the bastion of Black Mirror commentary it always was. Take risks, piss people off, don't keep chasing the dollar so nakedly. Essentially, rediscover the reason you wanted to make a game called Grand Theft Auto in the first place, or hire a team of people who already know. I mean, hell, it worked for Sonic Mania.